It was supposed to be an ordinary camping trip. At least, that's what I thought as I drove through the dense woods in my old Jeep, with nothing but the sounds of chirping birds and the rustling of trees to accompany me. Little did I know I would never leave these woods the same way. I'd read a lot about strange disappearances and mysterious phenomena, but none of it ever seemed real until that night. I had set up my tent near a secluded clearing, far from civilization. The stars above glistened like diamonds scattered across a velvet sky, and for the first time in weeks I felt at peace. That was until the ground shook beneath me. At first I thought it was just an earthquake, but the tremor was followed by a high-pitched whirring sound. Curiosity overtook me, and I ventured toward the source of the noise. As I walked deeper into the forest, I noticed a soft glow illuminating the path ahead. It wasn't the moon or any natural light, and it drew me in like a moth to a flame. I soon found myself standing in front of what could only be described as a spaceship, its metallic surface sleek and smooth, reflecting the stars above. Before I could even process what I was seeing, the ship's hatch opened with a hiss, and out stepped a figure no taller than 3 feet. She was an alien, her skin a pale shade of green, with large black eyes that seemed to absorb all the light around her. Her features were delicate, but there was a certain mischievousness in the way she looked at me. She wore a tight-fitting suit that shimmered like liquid metal, and in her small hands, she held a device that looked like a small, glowing orb. Before I could react, she took a step forward and, without warning, used the orb to immobilize me. My limbs froze as if the air around me had turned to stone. I tried to shout, but no sound came out. Panic surged through me as she casually picked me up, cradling me like a doll in her tiny, yet surprisingly strong arms. The alien girl giggled, her high-pitched voice echoing in my mind. "You're my pet now," she said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The next few days were a blur of confusion, frustration, and a sense of helplessness I'd never known before. The alien girl, whom I learned was called Eerie, had no intention of letting me go. Despite my protests and attempts to break free, she seemed to find my attempts rather amusing. I tried to reason with her, but her concept of reason was as alien as she was. Eerie's ship was equipped with advanced technology that I could barely comprehend. Inside, it was like stepping into another world. Holographic displays, strange instruments, and what appeared to be a small garden with plants that changed color depending on the time of day. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen on Earth. I was kept in a small, transparent enclosure, essentially a cage. It wasn't uncomfortable, but it was impossible to escape from. Eerie would often sit by the enclosure, watching me with those large dark eyes, as if waiting for something. She'd feed me small, glowing pellets that tasted like nothing I'd ever eaten before. At first I resisted, but I had no choice if I wanted to survive. "What are you doing here?" I asked her one day when she sat down on the floor next to my cage. "Why me? Why are you keeping me as a pet?" Eerie looked at me, tilting her head as if considering the question. "You're special," she said simply. "You are different from the others I've seen." I frowned, trying to understand. "What others?" She smiled, showing her sharp teeth. "The ones who didn't survive." She didn't elaborate, but the implication was enough. I didn't want to know what happened to them. Days turned into weeks. I began to adapt to my new life, albeit reluctantly. Eerie never let me out of her sight, and whenever I made an attempt to escape, she would stop me with a gentle but firm command. At times, I could see a flicker of what seemed like genuine affection in her eyes, and other times she would act like I was nothing more than a pet to be trained and entertained. The power dynamic was always clear. She was in control, and I was her captive. Yet, as strange as it was, I began to learn more about Ziri and her world. She wasn't from anywhere I could recognize. She'd speak in bursts of cryptic language, but the more I listened, the more I began to understand her fractured sentences. It was a form of communication beyond my comprehension, but somehow we found ways to connect. She showed me videos of her home planet, an idyllic world where creatures much like her lived in harmony, and where their lives were centered around exploration and curiosity. I asked her once, "Why Earth? Why bring me here?" Ziri didn't answer directly, but she did show me a glimpse of what appeared to be a map of the universe. There were countless stars and planets, many of them marked with glowing dots. Earth was one of those dots, but it seemed insignificant in the grand scheme of things. "You're my friend," Ziri told me one day as she sat beside my enclosure, stroking the bars with her fingers. "I protect you. I want to keep you safe." Her words were oddly comforting, and for a moment I almost believed her. I could see the loneliness in her eyes, the deep desire for connection, but I wasn't sure if I could ever trust her completely. Ending. One day I found an opportunity. Ziri had become distracted by a malfunctioning console, leaving the door to my cage slightly ajar. I could feel my heart race as I cautiously stepped out. My mind screamed at me to run, to escape, but something held me back. Before I could make my decision, Ziri appeared in front of me, her eyes wide with surprise. "You were going to leave me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I froze, unsure of what to say. I don't belong here. I need to go back." Ziri stared at me for a long moment, and for the first time, I saw something other than dominance in her expression. Genuine sadness. "You don't understand," she said, her voice trembling. "I can't let you go. You're the first. You're the first one I've found who makes me feel like I'm not alone." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I had always known that she was different, but hearing her vulnerability made me realize how much she was like me in her need for companionship. Still, I couldn't stay. "I'm sorry," I whispered, stepping back. "I have to go home." With a heavy heart, I turned and ran, knowing that I might never see her again. As I left the ship behind, I looked back one last time, and saw her standing at the hatch, watching me with those large, sad eyes. When I finally made it back to my campsite, the forest was as quiet as it had been when I first arrived. The stars above seemed to blink back at me, as if nothing had changed. But I knew better. My life had been irrevocably altered. Though I'd escaped Ziri's grasp, I couldn't shake the feeling that our paths would cross again someday, whether I was ready for it or not.